I went everywhere. I was very brave. I never was afraid of anything. And if I passed a German soldier, I just smiled on him. Or if I passed Arrow Cross guy, I also looked at him. Like, they never stopped me, but our friends where I was just hiding said, you need some
papers. You need documents.
Some documents.
Because they stopped you at the street and
asked for documents. So how to get documents? And he was very nice because he really found somebody who sold his own documents for money. Not for my money, because I didn't have much. And he made some duplicates of it. And so I had a birth certificate. I had my mother's birth certificate, false, of course, of this girl. My name was Margaret Sipos. Manci Sipos, which was very easy to remember because the Hungarian backstroke champion had this name, Sipos Manci, so I had her name. And so that was okay. In the meantime, my parents were also in hiding at another place. Also a customer of mine took them in, and they were in Bodor, which was the other part of the Danube. I was in Pest, and they were in Bodor. And so for my mother, I also had a paper, a birth certificate, which was okay for her. But for my father, there was nothing. And that was too bad, because they lived there together, and the lady who took them in told, I can't keep your father if he has no documents, because you never know when they come in. And so I had to find something for him. I don't know where I got the wonderful idea, but suddenly I remembered that in the family there is a Christian lawyer, an advocate, a lawyer, who is married to mother's cousin. And I went to see him, and I asked him if he could help me. And so the miracles, they always happened to me, because he said, just sit down, my child, we do something. And he was looking in his drawer and took out a document. It turned out he was an adopted child, and all his life he was having the name of his adopted parents, but he had his real birth certificate.
The original
birth
certificate.
And he gave it to me. And this
he was about the same age.
Yes, so this was the other miracle which happened to me, and I was gloriously happy, and I went with this document to my father. So he moved out, because it wasn't feasible to live with
our father
name.
Moved out to a different place.
He moved out, I said so. He took a room nearby. It was easy. He had the document. He could go there and he could tell some lies where he comes from. And my free time, I always went around to buy, because my teacher told me, don't use your supplies, what you have. Go, there is this buffet, Ada buffet on Andrassy Street. They still have something to offer. So I went there, and they really had soya sandwiches. I had no idea that's so healthy. So every day I went there and ate soya sandwiches, not to waste my supplies, which was very clever. Time went by, and Christmas came, the day before Christmas. You said if I ventured out, of course. There were stores, they opened up, Jewish stores, and they were big sales. And I even went to buy, I had money then because I was earning money. And I went to buy presents for the people. They were so nice to me. And so I even went and visited them. I gave them their presents, and then I visited my parents, and I took them whatever I could in food, because they couldn't move around like me. What I could bring, I brought them some food, And this was the last night. Mother still cooked a good dinner, I remember. And this was the last night I saw them. Because this very night, the bombardment of Budapest started because the Russians sent 2 parliamentarians to the
emissaries with the white flag.
With a white flag to the headquarters, or the military headquarters, to
ask for surrender in
case they won't touch Budapest. And what did they? The Hungarians, they shot the missionaries. So they didn't go back, but the bombardment right away started. And when I was walking before the bombardment started, and I was walking all the time, I was in the street just buying food wherever I could find. It wasn't everywhere to find, to have some to be prepared for what was coming. We knew already what was coming. So I saw Arrow Cross people to lead groups in the street who they took out from the houses and to lead them to the ghetto, which was already a part of Budapest, fenced in for the ghetto, and they put them off in the ghetto. And if they couldn't follow them, if they were too slow, they just shot them in the street, on the Andrássy Street, the most beautiful street in Budapest. Oh, they blew up the bridges right away, the Germans, the silly Germans. They saw they can stop the Russians on the left side of the river, so and not to cross to the other side.
All the beautiful bridges of Budapest were in the Danube.
Yes. So this is that I never saw my parents again, because there were no bridges, and we were living downstairs in the bunker because bombing went on day and night. We just heard the explosions and figured where this bomb fell and where this. So it wasn't very entertaining. There was a ghetto. They made a ghetto where they put all the Jews who were not deported. They took them out of the Jewish houses and they pushed them into this ghetto, and there they lived in very bad conditions.
Terrible conditions.
And I knew the address of Pali's mother, who was a lovely, lovely, lovely lady. We all loved her, and of my aunt. So I figured I have to find them. And I went out. My first thing was to go out and find Margit Néni.
That was the name of Margaret, was the name of my
So to
husband.
go to their place, I had to cross the plaza, and not thinking of anything, I was just crossing the plaza, and there was frozen bodies were lying there like sardines, one beside the other, hundreds of them, with a star or without a star. And I just tiptoed between them. I went to this place and I really found them at the address. So she was very happy to see me, and I asked her what happened. So she said, we survived. Are you hungry? I asked. Of course we didn't eat for 2 days now. There was nothing. They couldn't even, like me. I was walking around before and I could get some food. So
then there were so many.
I turned around.
Yes.
I went back between the bodies and went back, and for 1 bottle of rum I got some potatoes and an onion, and I cooked the potato soup, a potato goulash they called it, and then I packed it as long as it was hot still, and I went back between the bodies. I made the trip again, and I brought them so they could eat, and it was just wonderful. And then I tiptoed back between, then I already knew my way through the bodies. Can you imagine this? So Lotzi, at this time I didn't know him, my husband, but I didn't know him yet. He was
so that was in 44.
It was in 44, end of 40, yes, summer of 44. He was in labor camp, in the slave labor, and he was working close to the Danube. And when the Russians approached And the radio told, they heard it already on the radio, that the Russian troops are coming from the east and invading Hungary. So then the Germans and the Hungarian
are retreating.
Hakenkreuz, Arrow-cross people.
Arrow-cross.
They were retreating and they were pushing the group of the labor camp also in front of them to go to
the west.
To the west, to Austria. And my future husband decided he won't go. He will stay here, and 3 of his friends decided the same thing. So they stick together. They went into the bush during the day to hide when the group left, and then at night they went along the Danube until they found an empty boat, which they took. And they took the boat and started to paddle up the Danube. And they paddled and paddled and paddled during the night until finally they saw an island. And they went to the island and embarked there. And this island happened to be a game reserve. And there was just a cabin, one only cabin on the whole island, and 2 people were living in. One was a game warden and the other was a fisherman. And they told who they were and that they escaped. And they were welcomed so much by these 2 men. They invited them to be there. They slept on the floor of the cabin, but they were very nice to them. So they started to feed them. They shot a deer and they roasted it on a fire. They made a campfire, and as a matter of fact, they had a very good time. The fisherman was fishing, then they brought him carps, which was the main fish in the Danube at that time, and they spent their time going around. They even could jump into the Danube and wash themselves. So time went by, and they spent their 2 wonderful weeks after all these horrible things they went through. They were playing cards. They had a pack of cards and they were playing cards. They were fishing. They were enjoying life.
So they had a vacation.
And they heard on the radio how the Russians were approaching, and soon they arrived and they occupied the first city, which was not too far from the island, Bodor, and they are now there, and the country is going to be deliberated by the Russians. It was deliberated, but then it was enslaved later.